I'd like to call to order the Town of Rome Joint Community Development Authority and Plan Commission Subcommittee meeting for Tuesday, July 26th. It's 2:30 p.m. and I would do a roll call starting with Cheryl.
Evenson here.
Capel here.
Baker.
Goldman.
2 representatives from Plan and 2 representatives from CDA. Great. Certify the posting of the meeting. So the agenda for the July 26th Joint CDA and Plan Commission meeting was posted on July 21st at the Rome Municipal Building at 8:36 a.m., at Quick Trip at 10:40 a.m., at Nakusa Port Edward State Bank at 4:04 p.m. It was emailed to the Wisconsin Rapids Tribune at 3:49 p.m. and posted to the town's website at 2:06 p.m. An approval of the agenda for today?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Citizen comments, I don't have any cards. We don't have any citizen members joining us today, but if they would want to join with us, happy to speak on an agenda item. No action contemplated except possible referral to a future agenda. Information updates, recent correspondence, current events, and announcements. Anything anyone has to share?
You have music in the gazebo tonight from 5:30 to 7:30,
Yes.
and that's my announcement.
The weather's gonna hold off, and we have Arby's roast beef to serve, so.
Nice.
Discussion and possible action on the following items. Number 7 is discussion and possible action on the approval of the June 14th, 2022 joint meeting minutes. Should have been in your packet for review.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Bill and Mike, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Number 8, discussion and possible action. Second review of track change modifications to chapters 6, 7, and 8 of the comprehensive plan. So those were also included in your packet. So on it's economic development chapter number 6. When I reviewed this for a second time, I just had a couple more thoughts. Most of them revolve around objective 3 and objective 4. When I reread objective 3, I thought there's really a place for Visit Rome to be in that. And the policies that were underneath it really should be under objective number 4, because they don't deal with tourism, they deal with things that the Plan Commission works with.
Which one again? Sorry, I was navigating.
Objective 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
Objective 3 and 4.
So you're saying objective 3 should be changed
Split
to
that screen.
recognize,
Two didn't
visit
follow.
Rome,
Something
Oh, I
with Visit
see.
Rome, I think,
Okay.
should be included in that.
encouraging, okay.
Because encourage and promote the tourism industry through support of community-based organizations.
Working closely with Visit Rome
Yeah, we could do that.
as a, and then move those policies over under objective 4. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because the policies are,
Yeah, Plan Commission,
they're Plan
Issues.
Commission related, they're not tourism related.
So then objective 4 will have 4 policies underneath it instead of the 2,
5.
5. And my thought with continue to work with the Plan Commission, I mean, the Plan Commission is essentially us. Should it be support a strong Plan Commission or promote a strong Plan Commission? I like the support a strong Plan Commission. Because to work with Plan Commission, it's us.
Working with yourselves. Yep.
Yeah.
Support or strengthen, or yeah.
Anything else on 6? We're gonna add visit room to that, working closely with visit room.
Okay, so, did we talk about, we removed that so we don't pick people out specifically? Cause we had it like visit roam, but we took that out because we don't wanna favor it.
Yeah.
That's what we discussed last time at least.
We took out draft and snow bandits, and I just don't, I feel like if you're gonna say the tourism industry, it has to have visit roam, cause they're our tourism, our
That's fine.
destination marketing organization.
Yeah, so, we're closely, yeah, that's phrased a lot better than it was.
Yeah.
So, like,
Wondering if you want to instead reference, the town's designated destination marketing.
You can do that. And, working closely with,
So you're not
The
specifically
towns.
referencing Visit Rome.
Yeah, because they
You know.
could
We haven't.
hire somebody else
Because we have
eventually.
an
Yeah.
agreement with them, yes.
so, through support to community-based organizations, working closely with the town's designated marketing organization, DMO. Anything else on chapter 6? Cool. Chapter 7, which is land use. Again, we'll do a deeper dive into the land use map, but just for the goals, objectives, and policies. I reread objective number 1, policy 4, and I'm like, I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure if anyone provided that one as a piece of input, but I reread it and I'm like, I don't know what we're trying to achieve there.
yes, that one was on the initial sheet of notes I was provided.
Does that mean like
My
parks
assumption there
and
is
things?
infrastructure. That's how I read it, but I didn't write it. I'm sorry, Dan.
Yeah, and it's under the objective to provide adequate supply of developable land to meet existing and future demand for residential, commercial, industrial, and other uses. So maintain adequate capacity of public facilities and services to be able to accommodate projected demand for new land development.
Can we track back who that came from?
No, cause it,
I'm not sure.
yeah, it all came through aggregate. We'd have to search emails to.
Okay.
I just wasn't sure if it was one of those things where somebody else would be like, oh, that totally makes sense, Jamie, it means, and
I mean, it kind of means everything.
then.
So
It is.
I'm the adequate capacity, I just feel like adequate capacity, like what are we,
what's a public facility, right? Like,
Yes.
Is it,
yeah,
That can be parks, it could be,
Your library,
uh,
I mean, it could be
Yeah.
a lot of things.
Utilities,
Restaurant.
could be anything.
But I think to Jamie's point though, if you look back to objective 1 and what it's saying, it's providing adequate supply of developable land. Which maybe that doesn't fit great underneath that or objective.
And if it doesn't, if it's not under that one, I don't know that it necessarily, per se fits anyplace else, just
Right.
because of the vagueness of what are we ensuring adequate capacity of.
Well,
I read that more as providing government services to support growth, which there may be a better chapter that fits that.
if you go back and you read the goal for this chapter, it's almost that. It's just stated differently. Ignoring the last sentence there. Or after
Yeah.
the last comma.
Efficient use of public services, facilities, and tax dollars.
Yeah, good point.
I say we delete it.
I agree.
I don't have a problem with it.
My only other, which is probably kind of picky thing on here, is under objective 2, policy 6. I think that should go under objective 3, because objective 3 talks about
New development.
new development. And then objective 5, I'm sorry, policy 5 under objective 3 that talks about county forest land should go under objective 2. They should just be switched.
Switched.
Cause objective 2 talks about encourage land uses, densities, and regulations. So I think that is more where forest crops should go, and the restrict development of new residential subdivisions and forestry land should go under new development in objective 3.
Yes.
I'm only gonna repeat that because when Linda rewatches this for minutes. So, objective 2, policy 6 would be objective 5. I'm sorry, policy 5, objective 3, and policy 5, objective 3 would go back to policy 6, objective 2.
Give her my notes every time too.
Yeah.
Couple of housekeeping things, I think. Under, where am I looking at here? Do we have 2 policy 4s under objective 1?
No.
We don't. Oh, no, we don't. So it goes down, so that policy 4 at the
That
top
one's
of the
gonna be,
page, that's objective 2.
okay.
Okay.
And then under objective 3, policy 3, do we, after utilize, take out the word use?
I think use buffer areas.
Well, it says utilize buffer areas, but utilize use, I didn't really understand what that meant.
Utilize buffer.
There's an extra word.
Or
You're right.
utilize
Use hyphen,
buffer
yeah.
Yeah,
areas.
just
Yeah.
take out use. Unless you were utilizing the buffer for some sort of something. My use buffer.
And if you were talking about use buffers, I think
It's really
you
a
would
thing?
do that.
That's what I
You
thought.
would do that through the future land use map, you could still do that. And what
I thought
it's
it was a
really
thing.
saying
It's a
is
thing.
to,
And so
To
use
kinda
buffer is actually a
gradually-
term.
gradually
It's-
move
It's just
into
because it's at
different
the end of a
uses.
sentence, we didn't know that, so maybe
rather
that's what
than
it is.
abruptly, so like, for example, you might not have, industrial next to R2. You might, put some kind of buffer that creates larger lots before you would move into a dramatic shift in use. So that's, I think, what they're talking about with use buffers, but
Yeah, that's what I.
you can reflect that in a future land use map too. I do think you wanna have buffer in there, that
Mhm.
buffer areas piece,
Yep.
because, should you have it as a conditional use permit, I think, depending on the use and the conditional use, permit that would be in front of the plan commission, buffers are routinely looked at, to also lessen the impacts on some of those adjacent uses.
I didn't know that was a defined term though. Good to know. Did you have anything else, Mike?
No, I did not.
Anything else for chapter 7 land use?
No.
Under, just another housekeeping, under objective 4, it says policy 13.
The 3's crossed out, it's hard to see.
It is supposed to be crossed off? Okay,
Yeah.
alright,
Sorry.
alright, cool. That's it.
If you print it in color, it stands out.
Oh, okay.
I always do mine in black and white too. Yeah, then it makes it harder to see the track changes.
Mm-hmm.
So chapter number 8. This was the brief chapter, the last one before we dive into the land use map. I didn't see, we added a very small piece to objective 2 policy 1. Any additional comments or concerns there?
Are there any other services that we haven't contemplated that we should add? I can't think of any, but I don't think there's anything else on the,
Okay, great, that's our chapter reviews, thank you. So then discussion and possible action, review of map 8 existing land use and map 9 future land use.
Then I included a zoning map as well, just because I feel like it's relevant.
I think it is relevant. If you were doing a comprehensive update to the comprehensive plan, usually you would pull your current zoning map into what the existing land use is. Since it's definitely different than existing land use, it's a good reference point as you look at the future land use map.
How do we ultimately want to attack this? Because we're going to want to get input from other groups, right?
Yes, I think it's a conversation about how we ultimately wanna. Cause it's a big chunk of area and, the one, Plan Commission has gone through this process quite a lot, but if someone comes in and is looking to build a home in anything that's zoned FR, they have to go through the comprehensive plan change, cause to alter that zoning would be the comprehensive plan and the zoning, the map amendment,
In most cases.
in most cases.
Right, because there are some times where it might be rural residential already, and the zoning is FR. In those cases, we don't, but in most cases, we do have to amend the comp plan too.
So as we've grown in residential area, is it time to reflect that in the future land use map? And do we do a first reflection of that and then share it out as a first draft to give people something to look at for input? Or do we collect that input now and then put that into a first draft?
That's just updating what is, though, right? Or,
The map that was in your packet should have been from like November of last year, yes.
11, 18.
So that would reflect, there might be 2 additional comp plan changes.
There'd be like 4.
I think 4.
Yeah, because
And were all of those moved from like
3, I think.
forestry to residential?
residential, I'm sure.
Yes, either R4 or R5.
Yep.
So the one that you had in your packet does, for the most part, reflect current status.
Well, there's probably a number of ways that you could approach this, and I'm not saying this is easy or doable, but one way that you maybe could do it is either split this map into quarters or halves and approach it in a smaller part first and then look at it as a whole. It's just a pretty big map to try to dig into as a town-wide before you look at maybe sections.
So for this, for the land use map, if somebody built a house on a 40, would the 40 be represented as residential then? Or would that house be represented as,
Yeah, so you're talking about the future land use map, right?
or
Or-
current?
Current, okay.
Like, so, cause, I mean, I've issued a few permits for people to build houses on 40s that was previously FR, and then they rezoned,
Mhm.
and now it's residential. Would that be reflected as a yellow square or as a green square, even though it's all,
Sure, it depends on the way you described it. They had to rezone, and so if they had to rezone, the first thing you would look at is, did they have to amend the comp plan, future land use map? So yes, you would, of course would reflect any rezones and amendments to the comp plan, which I think you had discussed a few of them that maybe weren't reflected in this one that we have in the packet. There is another situation, and that is where maybe the future land use map isn't consistent with the current zoning. And it's really not gonna come into play unless they want to rezone it, and that's when you would look to the future land use map. But there is that situation, where there may be somebody that's currently zoned residential, they're gonna build on it, and on our future land use map, it's reflecting as forestry, for example. It's just not gonna come into play until, such time that they would ever want to rezone. You'd look at the future land use map and say, hey, it's forestry.
It isn't gonna reflect on your existing land use map though, cause the existing land use map I don't believe has been updated since comp plan was established.
And the existing land use map should be, as we go through our comprehensive updates, so like in 2016, that our current zoning map at that time should be forwarded to them and incorporated. I realize the other difficulty is that our zoning districts don't match perfectly, I don't think, the land use districts that they put on there. But we can also ask them to reflect that. Some of this starts as kind of a boilerplate as they assist a number of municipalities, and so to the best that we can, we should probably, during a next, so it would be 26, during that one, we should reflect whatever our current zoning map is. So this existing land use should be our current zoning map at that time.
But ultimately, for the future land use map, we want that to be a tool for the plan commission in order, when they're considering any sort of change, right? When we haven't to date, we've just kind of done whatever was asked from what I can tell. But this is one of the most important things of the comprehensive plan, right?
Where development should
Very
go and
important
where it
piece of
should not go.
Right.
That's,
Yeah, it's one of the few things
Well, I
that
thought
actually
we were
gives some
kinda, yeah.
teeth when it comes to that, so. I guess that's why I was trying to figure out how we get input from, I know
you put
all the
something- you
CDA
put
members
something on
probably
there
wanna
that'll
talk, yeah.
Stoke some interest. That's exactly how you get some.
How can we even easily manipulate this though? Like, we have somebody doing this, right?
Yes,
This is
North
outsourced.
Central does. I mean, it's a service that they provide to municipalities. So it's not like if we make changes that they're gonna charge and then recharge, but it also is, it isn't instantaneous either in change. We would send them a series of changes, we'd wait a couple weeks, we'd get it back, we could show it, it's not something that we can easily manipulate.
And they can do drafts.
They can do drafts.
Remember how we did this last time, Nick?
Unfortunately, a lot of times where communities go through comprehensive plan updates, they don't spend a lot of time on the future land use map. And part of the justification they have for that is that they're constantly looking at the future land use map, is what they say, as they're going through rezones and comp plan amendments. This is a little bit different though. I mean, there's a lot of good reason to look at your comp plan future land use map. So I don't know that we've actually done a deep dive into this future land use map before. I'm not sure that we have.
I don't think we did.
Maybe back in 2006, but that would have seemed to me, so
I
I'm not
remember,
sure.
I remember looking at it from the standpoint of multifamily, because we don't have a lot of multifamily listed on our future land use map. In fact, we only have, if I remember correctly, there was only like 1 or 2 places.
I'm guessing that when you first went through this, a decent amount of focus was put on ag, multifamily, maybe commercial, you know, those kind of bigger things, right? And where do you want to see those things in your community? And maybe a little less on, you know, where exactly rural residential, you know, may fall into it.
I like the idea of splitting it up into maybe quarters and focusing on a section at a time. It might be a little more helpful.
So you can, I think you could do that 2 different ways. You can either quarter it, or you can 4 sections across the map, which may work a little better around 13. And your, you know,
Yeah.
your focus on gateway and
Right.
some of the development there.
Right.
Because if we quarter it, like
As this way, yeah,
Squares.
then you're gonna
Um,
overlap, yeah, but this way, absolutely.
and at least looking at the west, I think you could probably do that fairly easily. Maybe in the east it's a little harder, but. Where do you draw that? Like right here?
Yeah, I was
For
14,
quarter one?
yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then over, like right around here, quarter 2, which gives us a lot of space there. Somewhere, you know, maybe right here to end quarter 2. And then this section of quarter 3,
We could,
because it ends right here anyways.
we could put some lines across it to break it apart for our next meeting.
Because if you drew it here, I mean, obviously you're gonna have some of this, but you're gonna capture a lot of that stuff. Certainly that middle area is good, and I think that area is good.
Yep.
Just gets a little bit harder over here, but I think if you drew it that way, it'd probably be good. It's like, it's a nice line right there.
We can mark on the one we draw the lines on, the very few additional comp plan changes that we've had. We can highlight those parcels too. I think they're a good example of the transition from forestry to rural residence, like where that's occurring. And then maybe at the next meeting, we would just say we'd focus on that first area. Maybe we'd put 2 areas on, just in case we would get through an area more quickly. Cause some of them are, I mean, not to draw one out, but where the PUD is it's a big chunk.
Yeah, a little
Yep.
easier.
Yeah.
Right.
That west area is it's a little more straightforward than
Mm-hmm.
the further you move east.
Right.
Okay.
And Derek Hughes is, I mean, that's,
Right.
you,
Good point.
you take out your 700 acres there.
Yep.
Then going back to Dan's point, once we would do a review of those sections, and we would provide potential thoughts for a draft, a first draft to North Central, how do we wanna share that information and see if, how people wanna provide input? And certainly we can post it on the website, and we can say the map is out here, share with us comments or concerns. But are there additional,
Well, I think we should provide some commentary with it that explains our rationale behind whatever changes we made, right? Based on what we're seeing in terms of demand in the last few years and what we think's gonna happen. And
Dan, you had mentioned CDA and Plan Commission respectively, and I think we have that reflected on both of their agendas, so we can do those updates at that time and kind of get inputs. I think it's on informational. Is it put on Plan Commission's agendas?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, I mean, each of the respective committees can provide some input that can be brought back to the meeting at that point. But then I think it's a little bit more difficult to think of how you're going to get that out in the community to get that input. 'Cause I don't know that we got a lot of it when we were asking for input on the chapters, right, and the goals, objectives, and policies. I don't know that we got a lot of it. So
Can we piggyback on the communication plan that's being developed?
oh, for grant subcommittee? Yeah, for sure.
sure.
There's already someone working on a way of getting information for the grant subcommittee out into the community. So, once they've decided what that plan is, why should we reinvent the wheel?
So are they going to put together kind of an internal
I
policy?
don't
for
know,
that?
I'm
Or-
just asking the question.
Oh, well, I wasn't sure if
Rather
that,
than, I've seen no flesh on the bone so far.
I see, okay. I wasn't sure how
Somebody
fleshed
is,
out that was.
somebody's tasked with coming into their meeting, I believe next time with at least a substance of a
Okay.
communication plan.
She did it she worked for a school district in her career, and that they would put together these plans for different projects that they had going on. And she said she would assist with, it's essentially like listed out, and then you grab the pieces that you want for each one, so
I see,
Okay,
okay.
she,
I think we can benefit without having to work on it, if we can just at least look at that as a potential way of doing what you wanna do.
It certainly would be a good starting point without reinventing the wheel,
Right.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, you'd have a
Right.
list there. I mean, you can add to it if you felt that there were other avenues, but it would definitely be a good starting point. Good idea.
you guys are giving me such high hopes about whatever this is.
I don't know yet either.
okay, so for the next meeting, we will bring back the map divided into 4. It'll be divided north-south or into the 4 quadrants. And we'll note where those changes have most recently been. And then we'll have probably like quadrant 1 and 2 on the agenda to do a deep dive in those.
If we're gonna do that,
Future
can
one.
we pick up 11 by 17 copies before the meeting?
Yes.
Cause I can't read those other ones. I've
Yes.
tried.
We could just make sure that we get you 11 by 17 copies.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can, between, I would see you both at
CDA,
CDA.
yeah.
Yep, and for Plan Commission.
Okay.
Do we have a plotter here?
We have a plotter, I think it's at Fire Station 2.
Under a tarp or what?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, they're pretty cheap these days. Might be something worth considering. You can do all sorts of stuff with those,
Yeah,
not just plan commission things.
I mean, now even for our zoning maps, we have to purchase them through the county, and they're not very expensive, but it's just then, it's the logistics of, you have to have it printed, you have to go, someone's gotta get it or be bringing it up, and, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a plan for future land use map for item number 9.
Yep.
Item number 10, discussion and possible action, referral of any recommended zoning code amendments to plan commission. Letter A is discussion and possible referral to a future agenda, review potential draft language for zoning district requirements regarding allowed numbers of accessory structures and lot coverage by buildings.
Okay, so over the last several meetings, we've discussed zoning district requirements regarding number of accessory structures and lot coverage of buildings in certain residential districts. At the last meeting, we discussed reflecting a limitation to accessory structures to 2 and 1 shed for R1, R1C, R2, and R3 districts, and then further reflecting a similar limitation to accessory structures in the LD district, where we didn't have language that specifically said it was limited to 2 structures. So first, let's start with the limitation on accessory structures. So starting with R1, you're going to see the language is reflected in R1 and R1C. That's because R2 and R3 just cross-reference back to allowed uses in R1's districts. So starting with R1, you'll see that C now states permitted accessory structures. Under C1, I just have one suggested update to that language. I put buildings in there, but really what's listed there is more than just buildings. So to keep it consistent, call it structures. So it would say accessory structures, including detached garages, carports, gazebos, swimming pool, greenhouse, play structures not larger than 100 square feet in footprint area or at any point taller than 15 feet and incidental to the residential use of the property. The number of accessory structures under this provision limited to 2 structures. And then underneath that, section C2 lists 1 shed.
Meaning 150 square foot or less structure.
Which,
Well,
which is, I think, cross-referenced earlier in our zoning ordinance.
Were we able to determine through the county how many non-conforming lots we would have if we put this in place?
So this,
I thought we were gonna go to the county and find out.
that's with lot coverage going
Yeah,
down to
that's
lot coverage.
15.
All right.
And I did contact Dustin about that. He said they don't keep track, and I have the email exactly. He said there are many properties that could be over, but unless they do something, it would never be an issue. When properties have done something, some do mitigation, have done something, which means going over their 15%. So they do mitigation, or others treat the impervious surface. We do not have a method to track this in our system.
Okay.
But that would be for the lot coverage. which
Yeah,
we'll get to in a moment.
the 15 versus 20%.
So keeping with the accessory structures, then going to that last page for Lake District, you'll see under 360-60A, I've just added under A that the number of accessory would be structures. Well, it does say accessory buildings currently in there, so there I probably would just keep it to buildings. But the number of accessory buildings under this provision shall be limited to 2. Actually, structures is gonna be better. The structures, and I would update the accessory structures.
Instead of accessory
Yeah,
buildings.
so anything that says buildings there should be structures.
Do we have a definition of structures versus buildings in the
I was
zoning
just-
code?
Yeah, I believe we have a definition of it, and I think it's references structures, but let me look at it.
So, with the definition, not definition, but you said including detached garages, carports, gazebos, swimming pool, greenhouse, and play structures. I think we discussed this briefly in the last meeting, but, so if somebody had detached garage and a gazebo, I don't know if gazebo would be like canopy, which we'll be discussing soon. But then would that limit them from not having a play structure?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And just because I've had people coming in about play structures, what is a play structure? again, would that be the roof or is that a swing set?
Yeah, I think it has a roof, so we
Okay.
do define that in our
Right.
ordinance.
Okay,
Yeah, it has a roof. It's not a,
It has to be
Swing
not
and a-
larger than 100 square feet in footprint and not any taller than 15 feet.
but it's not a bar with things that hang on it.
okay, it's the
It's
roof.
not the,
It
yeah.
has the little house on top.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if they cut the roof off, they're good,
Right.
right?
Or
Take
don't
the roof
exceed
off of it,
15
they can
feet.
But
build on
that
it.
would be
Yes.
elevated. It would
Oh.
still be elevated if you cut, because most of the time that house doesn't, it sits on a little, can go under the house or in the house.
Good point.
So if it's elevated, it's a structure
Over 15 feet, yeah.
over 100
Square feet.
Square feet. Got it.
So, we have definitions for accessory building, and we have definitions for structure. So, I don't have strong feelings, whichever one we'd wanna leave, but we have definitions that cover them. I'll read you the two definitions. Let's start with structure. Anything constructed or erected, the use of which requires more or less permanent location in or on the premises, or any other attachment to something having a permanent location on the ground, which includes is not limited to objects such as buildings, mobile home, gas or liquid storage tanks, bridges, culverts, decks, fences, satellite dishes, or swimming pools. Then,
So a deck is a structure
structure.
separate from the home. So does that count as an accessory structure then?
If it's attached,
Yeah, most of them are gonna be
Yeah,
attached to the home, aren't they?
usually they're attached.
But if it's not attached, then it's a structure.
So maybe a deck around a pool
Yeah, that,
would be
Right.
considered a separate structure.
But
But
you,
the
not
pool-
attached to
pool
your
and
house.
And the deck would just be the structure.
Right, but they'd be one structure.
yeah, because we require a fence around the
The
pool,
pool.
so it'd be
Right.
one.
fence or deck.
And you could have, without a primary residence, you could have a 400 square foot
Deck.
that wouldn't be a structure. Like if you had a camping lot and you had a deck to keep the sand out.
An accessory building is a detached building located on the same lot with a principal building and generally used for storage as a private garage or for another use customarily incidental to the use of the principal building. So those accessory buildings are referring to things that are on the same lot with a principal building. So that's not gonna be a shed.
What's the definition of a shed?
Under 150 square feet.
Under how many?
150 square feet.
150?
But if you're specifically asking for a definition for a shed, I'm not sure if we have it, I'll look.
So per Dan, building inspector, sheds have gravel, floors. Garages have
Have slab.
concrete floors.
Poured
Yeah.
concrete.
And we don't have a definition in our ordinance for that, unless it's referenced outside of the definition section, which I know we have some general regulations.
There's a language about square footage and then the height, right?
Definitely is language for square footage, yes. But the specific definition of a shed, I'm not sure that we have that.
I'm not sure either.
But we definitely have regulations regarding them. So that's a really long way of saying that whether we use accessory buildings or not, I'm not. So let's look at that LD ones. Because they were specifically referencing accessory buildings there. Single-family dwellings constructed to the standards of the Wisconsin Uniform Dwelling Code and accessories. They had buildings there, which remember the reference there would be that it has to be on a lot with a principal structure. So maybe we do want to leave accessory buildings
Building.
there.
This might dovetail into the second one though, because of the gazebo canopy discussion.
Maybe, yeah.
Because I want, building certainly would be detached, but wouldn't be used for storage.
Yeah, and interestingly, if you look under permitted uses, if we take a strict read of that, then yes, we have one shed, but then where's our other regulations for accessory structures? We don't set a limitation in there if we don't have it specifically called out. And accessory buildings is very strict, right?
Yeah.
As we just read in the definitions.
So I don't, that's why I'm wondering if that they should all be changed to structure, because it's a lot more
Sure.
Defining, yeah.
and it wouldn't apply, cause the structure permanent location, so it doesn't apply to canopies. Putting up a canopy, you're putting up a,
Hold on, temporary canopy. We're gonna hit canopies soon, and there are gonna be
Yes.
some that are,
canopies.
okay.
Let's be careful with that word.
Canopies and gazebos are our potato.
I must read a different book.
What are we trying to limit with this phrasing of two structures, though? Are we trying to limit accessory buildings like detached garages, or are we trying to limit the number of pergola? That's a specific thing, and a playground, and could someone have a pergola, a playground, and a detached garage?
When we last talked about it, it sounded like the desire was to limit structures,
Okay,
not necessarily just buildings.
so then we'd wanna change the word to structure then, I think, yeah.
And I think you could have a detached garage, a playground, and a pergola, cause the pergola wouldn't have a roof. It would be open air.
It's open.
Okay,
But could you have,
I've
I-
seen plans
T-
for roofed pergolas.
yeah, right, I understand. Yeah. Could you have a detached garage, a shed, could you have a detached garage, a larger detached garage that would be
A storage area.
a storage area, and a gazebo?
Well, so your first detached garage before the larger one, is that below the threshold for a shed?
Nope,
No,
Then no.
it's a two-stall garage.
If you're limiting it to two,
You wouldn't be able to do that.
then I think you're beyond that unless, but we could suggest to them that their first garage could potentially be a shed if it were to be explored at a smaller size,
Or just add on to your original garage.
or add onto your original garage. Yes.
So we've had the situation that we've dealt with most frequently as of late is I have a home on a lot and it has a detached garage. I bought the lot next to me, now I've adjoined them. I'm gonna build a much larger garage on that
Yeah, I've
separate.
seen them.
Yep, and then I had a shed on my lot and I had a shed on the lot next door, and then there's the gazebo that ties it all together. So that's what, in thinking through the conversation, I can see that would be we've had a lot of people that have added the side lots to them, combined them.
And they still don't exceed the limiting factor of percent of coverage?
No. 20%'s a lot of coverage.
yeah.
Yeah, I did the math on mine because I was concerned. I got room to go.
Yeah, I mean,
And how big a shed were you thinking?
Not shed, another garage.
Another garage, okay.
Because my garage is attached. It's 30 by 60. So I could put up another 30 by 60 detached.
Yeah, 20%'s a lot. Especially if you have a 1 acre lot.
and I think that takes us back to the original discussion, when we had looked at, and I think actually, to be fair, I think it was the plan commission that looked at what districts to put this kind of regulation in, because it becomes a moot point in R4 and R5 because of just the sheer size of the lot.
The size. Is there a precipitating factor on the limitation?
I think we just had discussed two, just that it went,
I mean,
and all of them have the one shed aspect, so all of them would only allow one 150 square foot or less shed.
yeah.
Um,
I guess I'm one that says less government is better than more government, and why are we looking at limiting people's private property if we don't have to?
Is the state building code ever taken into consideration?
UDC?
And you,
Like they have a 30%, on your lot coverage? I was just curious.
Where it's referenced in the UDC, we incorporate the UDC in our building.
So then if they wanted to go 30% of their lot instead of 20? The county comes first over the state?
Probably in shoreline zoning, because
Yeah,
shoreline
for
zoning would
sure.
restrict it further down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I
Um,
think local regulations there could restrict that further, which is what we're talking about.
Okay.
In this case, to Bill's original comment, with the lot coverage, we currently have the lot coverage limitations in LD. I think as we looked at this, the question came up, do we want to extend that lot coverage limitation to the smaller residential? Smaller can be, of course, smaller being smaller than R4 and R5.
Right.
Residential lots as well. But it's currently in LD.
Yeah, the only difference that would happen
Okay.
in LD, because
in that case, then my opinion would be that we treat all residential areas of similar type the same. And it would be warranted to move it over to R1 and R2. Otherwise, you're carving out Lake District separately. So I'm flip-flopping, but I'm flip-flopping for the reason that it already exists in one of our Lake District uses. So we're really making it uniform, is what we're doing. Okay. I forgot that you said that last time, but you did, that it was already in existence.
In LD.
District.
Right.
But you are adding to Lake District, the number of accessory structures
Yes.
shall be limited to 2.
Yeah,
To be fair, as I understand it, the approach in Lake District, or the understanding that, that staff had was that it was already limited, right? I mean, even, and so really this is codifying it, which is
Yeah.
highly recommended, because our approach
Oh,
has been,
yeah,
that's limited anyway.
yeah, I totally agree. And then if you're gonna do it there, then it should be uniform.
So multifamily in R2 would have the 20% lot coverage, but would not have the number of structures.
So the R2 and R3, like I had said at the outset, look back to R1. Now, to your last comment, or maybe 2 comments ago, the question was, in some of these districts where they're combining lots, do they, do you want to allow for more accessory structures? Well, I mean, it's something that you can explore. We had talked about 2, and so that's why I put it in there.
And how,
But for R2, for example, you look to R1's permitted uses, and then you go down that list further. So it'll be anything in R1, so under the permitted uses, anything in R1,
plus,
plus manufactured homes, duplex, and then the camping limit we place in there. I think it's similar in R3.
Yep, and then
Looks to R1's permitted uses,
bed and breakfast.
bed and breakfast, and 3 through 8 plexes.
Do you get many inquiries about people before they combine their two lots as to what is permitted then if they combine them?
The people who talk to me beforehand, I let them know, but a lot of times I just get the CSM from the surveyor,
Mhm.
and then I approve it as I go through the process to approve it.
And there may be another reason that they're looking to combine it, is because if they wanna build this big garage, they may combine it to get it on the same lot as their principal
If
structure.
they don't combine it, they're paying an extra $650 a year. That's why they're doing it. Because they have two separate
In
lots.
Arrowhead dues,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, that's where it's happening.
That's another reason, but I'm saying if they, let's just say they wanted to build a 60 by 40 garage. And they owned a lot and another lot next to it, and their vacant lot doesn't have their house on it, but that's where they wanna put their big garage. And they're probably gonna try to combine it, so they get it on the same lot as their principal structure. Because
But if-
otherwise they can't
They
put that,
can't put it up, yeah.
they can't put that garage up.
What if they already have the two structures on their original lot before they combine?
Then they
And
get
they
more
can't-
space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they have a big yard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, in the Lakes District, it's pretty rare that anybody's gonna have over 2 acres.
Yeah.
I know there's a couple by me that are probably bigger than that, but those are people that own a whole cul-de-sac. It's great that that reduces the density of development ultimately and population, but you don't want to let them have an open door to putting up 8 separate garages. If you want to put a big one up, go for it. But we want to keep the density of buildings lower too as a result. So
Yeah. Right.
I don't know, that 2 is still making sense.
So besides that change of buildings to structures, if we're feeling good about this, maybe let's start the conversation in B, just to see if it changes any feelings on this, but otherwise then I would think this language is ready to go back to Plan Commission for consideration. Okay, so B is discussion and possible referral to future agenda, review potential draft language for zoning district requirements regarding canopies.
So I provided a bunch of canopies that people have wanted to build.
Right. Do we have any draft language, though, to look at?
No,
Okay,
no,
all right. I thought I might have missed something.
Let's rule out the ones we don't want.
well, let's
All of them?
discuss a little bit, share a little bit more about what is in code now regarding
Okay.
canopies.
So I'm just gonna read it straight. Okay, so in Lake District and recorded residential subdivisions, canopies may only be used atop a boat lift that is located at least partially in a body of water, provided that the canopy is made of a non-rigid material. Canopy roofs may not be constructed of wood, fiberglass, metal, or any other rigid material. So basically no canopies allowed at all, Lake District, residential subdivisions besides a boat lift. In other areas, which there's not a lot that is not a recorded subdivision, canopies that meet the criteria of an accessory use pursuant to this section may be erected upon issuance of a permit. Canopies with roofs constructed of a rigid material require an issuance of a building permit, and the roof must meet snow load requirements of Wisconsin UDC. Canopies with roofs constructed of a non-rigid material just need a zoning permit.
And-
So,
one other point though, so everything that you just reviewed are permanent use canopies,
Yes.
right? So there is a distinction in our ordinance between permanent, which is what was just read, and the idea of temporary use. So in other words, somebody may want to have a canopy erected for family gatherings or rummage sales, and that's referenced in our ordinance separately
Mhm.
with a durational limitation.
Of
Is
10
there-
days
is there
or
a,
less.
was there a like, how long?
10 days.
Okay. So you couldn't put something up for the summer,
No.
even though that's not considered permanent, that's just,
Correct.
It would be more permanent, it'd be permanent enough in the eyes of our ordinance to be regulated differently.
This ordinance is outdated.
Hmm?
This ordinance is outdated.
Absolutely.
It was jammed in when those aluminum ugly looking things came about and
Yeah.
got affordable.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
just for purposes of giving background,
Yeah.
that's how our ordinance currently treats it.
Yes.
With the definite notation, as Dan said, that this could use some exploration, which I think is why it's here today.
So the things that are on, well, not the first two pictures, but the second two, the second page, the third page,
And then the
not so
fourth-
much the fourth
Yes,
page.
the fourth page is a pergola,
Yeah.
and then a pergola with a roof.
Yeah.
Somebody came in, they provided me with these pictures because they wanted to build a pergola with a roof, and I had to say no. But a pergola is not a canopy, so I think they just built a pergola without a roof.
I didn't know you could have a pergola with a roof.
What?
I didn't know you could have a pergola with a roof. Isn't like that the opposite of what a
Kind of
Is
defeats
it-
the purpose of the pergola, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
I mean,
And when-
Same construction, look, they wanted the aesthetic, I
oh,
think.
okay.
And when you interpreted our ordinance and provided that, it was based off of the definition, so that's one other piece for the
Mhm.
background. Our definition of canopy is a freestanding structure with a roof, usually unenclosed on the sides, that is not real property, and it includes what is commonly referred to as a port.
So on the second page, those two that are there, I see those all over the place in this town.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, those carport canopies, they're everywhere too.
Mm-hmm.
And
In violation of what the current ordinance is.
people are slowly getting letters. I have not done a canopy drive. But.
I mean, I don't think we want
canopy
those.
letters sent out.
I mean, that's just the same as leaving up a Walmart cheapy thing. Like
Which one were you referring to?
the carport type things.
So, I've had someone come in, I believe they'll be attending plan commission when since this is on plan commission agenda. There has been opinion of otherwise, that people very much like their carports, and they would like to have them on their property.
I think ultimately we're gonna have to come up with definitions for all of these things.
I think so too.
Cause people call them slightly, some people call them a gazebo, some people call it,
Yeah.
a screen porch, some people call it, we've heard it referred to as a series of different things.
Mm-hmm.
You may have a canopy definition generally, then you would have subcomponents of that.
I wonder if the industry has different terms for these different styles
Good point.
that we could piggyback off of.
I think carport will be an easy one for us.
Yeah.
Because,
What about the ground it's sitting on, like, say perhaps they wanna put concrete down, or they wanna put gravel down, or they wanna put, a wooden deck or something, to making it permanent versus just setting it up on the grass for a couple of months, just to sit underneath there with a picnic table. It's something that you're not gonna use in November, December, January, February, March. I mean, is there some kind of wording that you can, I mean, my opinion, not just a roof, but also your floor structure, like a shed has a gravel floor. I have a shed that, or I did not have it anymore, but it didn't have a floor. It
Yeah.
had a wood pallet,
Mhm.
so it was just portable, pick it up and move it, but it was still considered a shed, even though it shouldn't have been.
Well, and I think, I mean, this is terms from the building inspector based on what permits
Yeah,
are for, so I think by gravel floor means unfinished floor, so.
okay, oh, what, unfinished?
Yeah,
Okay.
unfinished versus a slab,
Okay,
so I think that's me just not communicating that
Okay.
appropriately.
yeah, cause I'd say gravel is a actual set in, dug in, put in floor
Yeah,
versus just setting it up on the grass,
which a ton of people do with those prefab.
yeah.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, one thing that we can do for the next meeting, because I don't think we're gonna solve this at this meeting, one thing we can do is compile a list of some of the industry definitions, so we can start to take a look at what this all consists of, because it's more than just a canopy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right now, we're bundling it all in within it, but clearly, there's some room for better defining these, and we need to define them better if we're gonna regulate them in some way, differently than others. So, we can put together a list of some of those, different things that might fall within this, and maybe the definitions that the industry gives, because I think there probably are those. So that's maybe one starting point for this.
Mhm.
Jamie, did you want to, you said you wanted to run this against the draft language? How so?
Because we do say in our draft language gazebo. So, I guess the question would be the pictures that are on the second to the last page that have the more structured roof. Is that a canopy or is that a gazebo? And if it's a gazebo, then is it a structure and does it count against your two?
Okay, so let me just.
They just
my
look like
wiggle out
mini
here is
versions of
always
our
to see if
gazebo.
there's a definition for it. Do we have a definition for gazebos? Because again, we may need to put definitions here.
Mhm.
The answer is we don't have a definition of gazebo. Probably want to put some kind of definition together. That's not a great answer to your question, but I think we need to define it, because I think the more
Yeah.
it's open to differing interpretations, the harder it is to enforce, and that would.
And you've
that
already
brings it-
added gazebo under your other language for the other ordinance, or the other change we're making, so we do need to define it.
Mhm.
And if we, because we have a gazebo here in town, right, and it's circular and it's, so, but if we would define the gazebo like it is on this third page, that it would have a rigid roof, it wouldn't have, it doesn't need to be circular, but it's a structure of sort, then are we comfortable, that structure is permitted and counts against the two? So, I think that's the follow-up question, that if we all, like, that's a very nice structure, it would look great on properties, it would be made of a rigid material, it could be kept up all year, that's one of your two.
So, with the term permitted, this would need to be permitted because it would need to meet snow load for UDC standards.
Mhm.
And I think that's fair, if
So-
you're gonna keep it up all year long, we'd wanna make sure it could hold a snow load.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, otherwise, you're gonna get a really bad winter and it's gonna crumble, and concern would be that
It'll stay
Just
there
stays
for a
there.
while.
and starts to become more blight.
Have you seen that one at, you know where Leeds is on the lake, Lower Lake? Tom Deckel,
Yeah,
what
it
he's
is
got.
recording, Mike, it is recording.
I mean, it's a beautiful,
Yeah, it is.
it almost looks like, you know, this picture here, and,
So are we okay with then looking to the verbiage in the ordinance?
Yeah.
Are we okay with leaving gazebos referenced there?
I think we have to have a definition though, because.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the fact that we're definitely going to have a definition.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then
Then we
are
can
we
leave
okay
that
with
verbiage.
gazebos there?
Yeah.
Because I've got gazebos as one of the listed things that we're,
As-
As an
You're going to
accessory
see-
structure,
you are going to see a definition for gazebo. You're gonna see a definition for a number of things, I think we need to put together those definitions for you. With the idea that you will see a definition, and a definition, so this obviously has to go through a bit of a process, even if you do say we are comfortable with the wording for the accessory structures and lot coverage, that can move to plan commission then. I can report to plan commission that, still working on the definition of gazebo.
Yep.
But then they can continue to kind of review these things, and they may have some updates that they want, and of course, there's a formal process to amending the zoning ordinance anyway.
Alright.
But if you're comfortable with leaving gazebo in there, with the idea that we'll work on the definition, then I think this could move to plan commission. This piece, not the canopy.
Not the canopy, but the
Piece.
gazebo
Yeah.
piece, yes.
In the property that came to your mind, Mike, would they have more than 2 accessory structures on that property plus a shed? That one, I'm only asking.
I don't believe so.
No.
Okay,
I think I'm familiar with them, and not that I'm aware of.
No.
I've seen it, it's beautiful,
It
but I
is,
don't think
yep.
it's considered, he would be over his 20%, and I don't think he'd be over his number of structures,
okay.
so.
So, just to go back to, I don't know which picture you're referring to, but,
Is this one right?
last, 4th page, 2nd picture, the pergola with the roof.
It's in this picture. But
That would be.
To clarify, even if it's on a deck, it wouldn't be allowed on a vacant lot with a camper.
what's that?
No,
Correct.
no, because we
Yeah,
don't
that's
allow
probably-
those structures before a primary residence.
Yes.
We
For-
wouldn't allow.
Not
it.
have
For
a
which-
covered deck.
for-
Yeah, you,
Okay.
That's what
yeah, you could just have your temporary tent that would be up.
You're
that
what?
would
You're
be
what?
permanent.
Sorry, I missed the first part of that.
With
You're
not-
talking about gazebos.
Without a primary residence,
The covered pergola.
I disagree with that. If it's bolted down to a deck that's permitted, then it's pretty permanently installed.
So we don't allow structures other than a 400 square foot deck and
Right.
a small shed on a vacant lot.
We
So
don't-
would we allow this on a vacant lot?
we don't permit that deck. That
Yeah.
400 square foot or less deck is not permitted.
It is a zoning permit.
Yeah, just to meet your
Yeah.
setbacks, but it's not,
That's it.
Right?
it's not UDC standards, it's not
Yeah.
into the, we don't know if it's in the ground or not, you know what I mean, if it's anchored.
Okay.
So now you cover that with a structure, are you making a sale? We don't, cause we
What
don't,
if it's anchored in a concrete pad?
It's not, there's no building permit for it.
we don't check if it's
Yeah.
anchored into
Right.
the pad.
Okay. Well, a lot of these exist on camper lots, so. And I don't have a problem with them being on camper lots when they're installed in a aesthetically pleasing manner, personally.
Then we'd have to switch that process to that being,
What's everybody else's opinion? I mean,
I guess it's everybody's version of what aesthetically pleasing is. Somebody's nice is somebody else's not so nice, so I guess there has to be,
this gets back to probably to defining what are the different types of structures.
Yeah.
And then, once we know that,
yeah, that's where we gotta have to,
because honestly, if somebody's gonna put up one of those and they want it to be permitted, or however we're gonna do this, they're gonna be spending a lot of money to buy what we're gonna require in the first place, I think. It's not gonna be less than,
and that
$1,600
that
from what I
flat
can tell.
roof would not really hold well in Wisconsin, in my opinion, flat roofs, because of the snow load.
oh, flat roof, no.
You know, and that pergola, that's,
That last one.
I don't
Yeah.
know how that would last,
No.
sitting on a camper with I don't.
And then also I think we should look into our temporary definition,
Yeah.
10 days versus summer.
Yeah.
Yes,
Cause,
If we're gonna regulate it, you
yeah,
better look
and we
at
need,
that.
there's been a lot of talk.
From
on
an
that.
enforcement perspective, it's way easier if it's seasonal as opposed
It
to
certainly is.
10 days.
yes.
Well, would we allow this for 10 days if somebody has a party, and then this for a summer? Like, I guess we need
Which
That's
one are you
another
are you talking about the top of that page or
this one.
oh, that one? But see, I don't know what the difference between that one and the other one is, to be
Well,
honest with you.
Like, have you seen, it's just like the really flimsy.
Oh, okay.
The
Well,
10
I
by
thought,
10 pop-ups.
the
Okay, it's just a
pop-up
pop-up,
ones
okay.
That you put up for a party.
alright,
Yeah, and you can put in screen sides and you can put a
Yeah, yeah,
plastic
okay.
Yeah,
down
like a
now.
screen little
A screen
camping
You
tent.
can
Screen
keep out of
tent,
the
yeah.
mosquitoes
Screen
for the
tent.
summer.
Right.
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, they call them screen tents, or they,
Yeah.
for a party, most people put up rental tents that are the big things, but,
I'm thinking like a 10-person party.
oh,
Like
okay.
a birthday party.
Yeah.
That's where there's gotta be some sort of distinction in the industry between what these things
Yeah,
are.
because something like that one that you've got up on page 31, that top picture, that'd be something I could put up on my beach and leave it there for the summer just for shade, and like
Yep.
Bill said, the mosquito protection from the screening and stuff, and
Yeah.
you know, now am I gonna be only have to take it down because I'm falling within that 10-day
Exceeding 10
period
days.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll be back
Definitions.
with definitions.
Canopy destruction. That's what
We're not there yet.
That's what we're gonna decide. By doing this, we're almost loading it under there.
So next meeting, we are looking at August 9th at 2:30. That would be directly before Plan Commission. That is the partisan primary for the fall, so make sure that you vote before you would arrive. Polls would be open till 8 o'clock.
Or after,
We
yeah.
should, yeah, or after. You'll already be here. But then it would be back here in this room. Is that time work for? You'll touch base with Sharon. She would,
I will.
okay.
Does that work for you?
Yeah, they'll let me typically get off of work. I'm trying to think of what happens. I don't know about the county meetings, but I'll figure something out.
'Cause I thought those were all the same schedule.
They pretty much are. But the county meeting, if it's on that date, is gonna be in the morning for me, property and rec committee, meeting. Or it could be at 2 o'clock, depending on how they change them around for one guy, so.
If you would have a change, could you just touch base with Paul? I mean, we will email him too, but,
Sure, to see if he could sit in for me,
yep,
certainly,
yep.
yep, no problem.
Okay, great. Then I will call the meeting adjourned today at 3:48 PM. Thank you.
Thank you.